All right, welcome and thank you for listening to our 16th episode of our second season of TACTALK. I'm your host, Alden Morris. So, in this first segment, we're going to be going over one primary focus, and that's going to be our Attorney General here in Washington State, Bob Ferguson, and how he has fired back at the sheriffs for defending the Constitution and going public about their stance on Initiative 1639. In the second half of this first segment, we're going to be speaking about the polar vortex here in Washington State and how many people have been affected and what's going on there. And in the second half of the show, what I want to share with you at the beginning, in case you want to tune in for the second half, which will be a longer segment, is going to be a video that I did back in, let's see here, September 13th of 2014, on a video called Agorism, which is something that I wanted to share. So, moving on. We're going to start here with the Washington Attorney General fires back at sheriffs over Initiative 1639 enforcement. This was published just today, February 12th, 2019. Washington Attorney General, this is by the King 5 News. I will leave the link to this source on both the YouTube broadcast as well as the Facebook Live broadcast. So, if you want to check this out for yourself, the link will be included in the description box. Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson wrote an open letter to law enforcement who have said they would not enforce a recently passed gun initiative. Writing it was their duty to abide by the will of the people. In Seattle, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson fired back at sheriffs and law enforcement who have said they would not enforce Initiative 1639, which is one of the nation's toughest gun laws. In an open letter penned Tuesday, Ferguson wrote that local law enforcement was entitled to their opinions on the law, but that does not give them the license to not enforce it. If you personally disagree with Initiative 1639, seek to change it, Ferguson wrote, or file a lawsuit by challenging it, but do not substitute your personal views over that of the people. Now, I do want to end that, or I'm not going to end the article there, I'm going to continue reading, but I do want to interject. Let me rephrase what he wrote that, I want to read it again. This is the quotations by Bob Ferguson, our Washington State Attorney General, our highest lawmaker in this state. This is exactly what he said in his letter today. He said, quote, if you personally disagree with Initiative 1639, seek to change it, or file a lawsuit challenging it, but do not substitute your personal views over that of the people, end quote. Now listen, Bob Ferguson, we have filed lawsuits challenging it several times. However, we have reason to believe that cronies and lobbyists have bankrolled certain judges, as we have Judge Dixon, I believe, that was his name, who shot down Initiative 1639 to begin with. And then it was moved forward from there with some people who you have, that you go play golf with, that you associate with, that you do these backdoor dealings with. So we have challenged it. So this is where Bob Ferguson, and I hope you're listening to this, this is where we're at. We have challenged it. We have disagreed with it. It passed by majority vote, and this is what it says in the Constitution, is an unjust law is not to be followed. Simply put, for you to tell your sheriffs for this state, you are the highest law authority here in our Washington state, but your sheriffs have challenged it. Your sheriffs have voiced their opinion. Your sheriffs represent that views of those people. But you're telling them, but do not substitute your personal views over that of the people. This is the views of the people. They wouldn't have these views if it weren't for the people going to their sheriff saying, what are you going to do about this? So moving on. I-1639 raises the purchase age of a semi-automatic rifle to 21, incentivizes safe storage, and creates enhanced background checks for rifles that are lined with the checks for handguns in the state. The initiative also authorizes the state to require gun sellers to add a $25 tax to sales or semi-automatic rifles, or $25 to sales of semi-automatic rifles to pay for new regulations. In his letter, Ferguson cited the new enhanced background check as an example of police's obligation to enforce the law of the sake of public safety. He argued that if a dangerous individual were able to access a semi-automatic rifle because police didn't go through proper protocol, law enforcement could be held liable if that person used the gun to do harm. So this is, again, I'm just going to interject again. This is where you want to hold accountable somebody. I mean, if you can't stop the criminal, hold somebody else accountable, you know. Let's be responsible for other people's actions. Remember, the Constitution does not protect you. The Constitution, even the founders of our nation, wrote into the Constitution because they knew this piece of paper, this little parchment, is never going to protect you. It only allows the ability for yourself to protect yourself. So, in short, the taxpayers of your city or county assume the financial risk of your decision to impose your personal views over the law, Ferguson wrote. Voters across Washington passed the measure by 59.4% in November, although county breakdowns show it was passed primarily in northwestern Washington. Mason, Grays Harbor, Lewis, Chelan, and Catatus counties were among those that rejected I-1639. Sheriffs in 12 mostly rural Washington counties, along with the police chief of Republic, have come out and said they would not enforce the measure until its legality was decided by the courts. Another sheriff, Lewis County Sheriff Robert Snazzer, said back in December he would not actively seek out violators. The National Rifle Association and the Second Amendment Foundation have filed a lawsuit challenging the initiative as unconstitutional and infringes on Second Amendment rights. However, Ferguson said he was confident that the initiative would stand up against any legal challenge, and until the courts rule otherwise, Initiative 1639 is presumed constitutional. As public officers, our duty is to abide by the will of the people we serve and implement and enforce the laws they adopt, Ferguson wrote. I encourage you to do so. That's the end of the article. So like I said, I will be including that in the link. Bob Ferguson has most definitely stepped out of line when it comes to his, his outlook or his perspective on Initiative 639. He doesn't see the age discrimination because he believes that if you're 18, you're not responsible enough. That's his firm belief. That's his discretion. That's his perspective. He says that you're not responsible enough to own a firearm, so but I don't see him challenging anything to change the laws or the age limit for having to draft for the military or having to join the military or a voluntary state. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's like, I have nothing to say. Let's get him out of office. If he goes for governor, good luck. Moving on. The polar vortex in our state here has been pretty crazy. I mean, I still haven't found my keys since last Sunday when I lost them. And so I went and made copies of my spares. However, in this area, because we're a lowland area here in Pierce County, I'm in Parkland, Lakewood area, Tacoma, and we got, I believe, 10 to 12 inches, and that's kind of that's like in my lifetime. I think I can only remember this once or twice before it's happened like this, and so little. Like, I think the most recent time I must have been in 5th or 6th grade when it snowed like this, but and even then I wasn't paying attention. I was outside playing. But I've driven my vehicle maybe 3 times this past 9 days. And I've got 4-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low. So it's just been crazy. I know that over in North Bend, they've gotten over 2 feet of snow, which is record amounts up there for their area. I do have friends living up there, reporting on everything up there. And we have had power outages for some people, but those have been fixed. Our governor, Jay Inslee, did declare a state of emergency. However, I don't think that was completely necessary, as people weren't necessarily dying. We have had accidents, but we've had great, news reports and forewarning and people just being cautious around this area because we already have bad traffic and gridlock to help prevent and keep that low when it comes to vehicular accidents and due to natural weather disasters, things like that. So the whole state of emergency by Jay Inslee I don't think was completely necessary. And if he was a better governor, instead of having to declare a state of emergency, he would have been funding our snowplows, maybe, better. So, who knows? So we're going to break for the first segment, then we'll be back with the second segment. I've got a video that I did back in 2014 for you guys on Agorism, then we'll talk a little bit after that. So thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Bees Combat Systems at beescombatsystems.com, protecting those who prepare. 801-987-0893 for custom body armor carriers and tactical gear for military, law enforcement, contractors, corporate security, responsible citizens, and border patrol. Bees Combat Systems at beescombatsystems.com. 801-987-0893. Okay, welcome back to our second segment of our 16th episode of our second season of TACTALK. I'm your host, Alden Morris. So, in the first segment, we spoke about how Bob Ferguson, our Attorney General in the state, is challenging or, responding to all the state sheriffs, and we spoke about the polar vortex. In this segment, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, but it's a little bit of one of my longer videos. It's one of my videos that are on topics that are a bit more in-depth. They stem from an ancient culture, which is ancient Greece. And I'm very into philosophy, so I've read, obviously, Socrates by Plato, over 2,000 pages of philosophy. I've read Aristotle's works, I've read Herodotus' works, I've read, the Odyssey, the Iliad. That's my culture, it's my bloodline, so it's my ancient family history. So I've always been, I'm 29 now, so since I was about 18, very obsessed with this kind of stuff. So I have tons of my own books that are in storage right now that I plan on pulling out for you guys. But this is a video I did back in 2014. So it must have been, 2014. So this is right before my first daughter was born, Evangeline. And I did this one on agorism and the agorist ideology. And I consider myself a polytheistic ideology, not so much monotheistic. Monotheistic is when you worship or you pay tribute or just identify your ideological values and your outlook on life and your perspective based on one single deity, whether it's Allah or Yahweh or God or Christ or whoever. The monotheistic belief is that you are focused onto one single deity, and that deity's teaching or teachings shape your outlook on life, which makes you the character you are. I'm a polytheistic, so I believe in multiple deities, and those multiple deities' teachings shape my outlook on my life. So I'm not saying I'm any better. I'm just saying that I have videos that I want to share that you may have never heard of before, because I go into these different depths and branches and fields of learnings that are completely unrelated to what a single deity would ask you to learn and comprehend and stay true to. So, because a lot of this stuff has to do with faith and commitment. So, my deities, for example, don't get jealous if I want to study another deity's teaching. So, moving on. This is called Agorism, the Agorist ideology. I published this on YouTube September 13th, 2014. I provided links at the bottom of the YouTube video itself. I will provide a link to this video onto the Facebook and to the YouTube broadcast as well. But it's 6 minutes and 16 seconds long. It's pretty entertaining, has music, so please enjoy. We are going to get to it now.
Agorism is defined as a libertarian social philosophy that advocates creating a society based upon voluntary exchanges as a means of counter-economics, thus slowly engaging in a form of peaceful revolution. Although a great idea, the ideology that agorists believe in is nothing new. The word agorism stems from the classical Greek word agora, which translates directly to gathering place or assembly and even marketplace. In the agora, which was a central spot within Greek city-states, free trade of all types took place, as did too athletic, artistic, spiritual, and political walks of life. In the agora, citizens from all classes would gather to trade, barter, and share information. There were no restrictions to what you could or couldn't trade. The trade depended upon the sole discretion of the parties involved. There were no third-party taxes or banks needed to make the transaction possible. The ideology of agorism was partially revived by Samuel Edward Konkin III in 1975 with contributions partly by J. Neil Schulman. Samuel Konkin, a libertarian philosopher, suggested that the agorist ideology could be implemented today by stressing the importance of alternative strategies as opposed to political reform or voting for political candidates in order to achieve a free society. For example, Konkin believed that a free society could be achieved quicker if alternative strategies were employed, such as education, direct action, alternative currencies, entrepreneurship, self-sufficiency, and most importantly, counter-economics. Counter-economics is defined by Konkin as the study and or practice of all peaceful human action which is currently forbidden by the state. In short, a great example of this would be the failed war on drugs, which only goes to punish individuals who already have the universal right over their own body. The term is short for counter-establishment economics as well as counter-politics, or in other words, transferring power from the state back to the people in every aspect of life. Agorists believe their message to be scientific because science is an appeal to reason, which is only possible within an agora or a free market. It is believed that if properly and thoroughly applied, agorism could work today. All it would take is for an initial movement to ignite. In many ways, the initial movement is already underway, with some examples as alternative currencies, such as the founding of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, the push for legalization, and the rise in self-sufficiency, with families and individuals taking their food and their energy needs into their own hands and learning to become self-sustained. There are many different ways that the individual citizen can engage in agorism themselves, and it is actually quite easy. Here are a few ways to get started. Independent learning and homeschooling are two of the most direct ways that the individual and the family can engage in the agorist movement. Simply by learning a trade, craft, or skill, you are already taking a step in the direction of independence from the current system. Alternative currencies such as cryptocurrencies and even the barter system should be adopted not just as a means of survival, but to also hone in on the skill of bartering in general. Rendering cash useless a few days of the week and learning to trade your services for what you may need is a great way to get started amongst your friends, family, and neighborhood. You don't have to go out and start your own business, but think about what you and your loved ones can offer the world. Whether it is physical healing like teaching yoga or providing massages, or even a skill more tangible such as being able to provide clothing or food from scratch. The point of entrepreneurship is for all of us to once again become industrious. Gardening from home, raising small animal livestock, and becoming well-versed in first aid are three great ways to obtain a more self-sufficient household. Furthermore, learning how to can and jar, store seeds, build and repair, and even hold neighborhood meet and greets will rid you, your family, and your neighborhood off of a system that is doomed to collapse. Counter-economics, or counter-politics, refers back to achieving a free society by means of voluntarism. The goal of this is, with time, the state's perceived moral authority and power will have been re-evaluated and undermined, thus ultimately recognizing taxation as a form of theft and war as a form of mass murder. In the end, government would be suppressed into a criminal activity, as it is the state that chooses when violence and theft are allowed. Engaging in counter-economics is relatively easy and just takes civil disobedience or direct action to begin. The first step can be not recognizing laws that are unconstitutional, as well as not obeying unjust laws such as consuming raw milk, collecting rainwater, or remaining confined to a First Amendment zone. Counter-economics allows for immediate self-liberation from statist control of all acts of forbidden association, including sexual, racial, and cross-religious association, and anything else the state, at any time or place, chooses to prohibit, control, regulate, tax, or tariff.
And that's the end of that video there. So that's 6 minutes and 16 seconds of explaining what agorism is and how you yourself can get started in participating in forms of agorism, which come from a variety of different options from, for example, education to direct action, alternative currencies, entrepreneurship, self-sufficiency, and, of course, counter-economics. And, of course, the whole point of the whole agorism is to rid ourselves of what's currently one of our biggest economic issues, especially when it comes down to the middle class families in this country, is taxation. Especially in my state, Washington State, when it comes to Jay Inslee and his tax your shoes, tax the streets, tax the air you breathe. no third party on any trades, basically. So if I have something to offer you, whether it's whatever of value it is to you, whatever you have to trade me back that is value to me, in order to properly trade these, whether it's an intellectual property or it's actual something like tangible, something like medicinal or something you can physically hold, there's always going to be a third party taxation on it because of the inflated currency or the fiat currency we're forced to use in order to exchange these goods. The whole point of exchanging these goods without a taxation is to no longer use that currency, to get yourself rid from the issues of what brings out, when, for example, the greenbacks, things like that, this fiat currencies. And of course, no violent or no non-violent offenses. So, example, the war on drugs, it's a made-up unconstitutional law that basically says that if you put this in your body, or if you grow this or you possess this and you don't hurt anybody, we can still lock you up for a lifetime. Obviously, that's against the Agorist movement. It's also a violation of our own country's U.S. Constitution. And what's funny is if you read the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1776, the most recent one, or not the most recent one, but the original U.S. Constitution, you'll see how in tune it is with Agorist policies that were obviously philosophized over 2,000 years ago in Athens. And the last one is to remain logical and scientific, no state religion. So, of course, a lot of people say that the United States is a Christian country. It's not. It's a country that was founded on enlightenment. It actually says that in the Declaration of Independence, that enlightenment is the focus, the pursuit of happiness is the focus, not to, tax someone for growing too much pot or to arrest them for growing whatever else. These non-violent offenses type deal. Logical, scientific, that's what the state religion should be, is logic and science. So, again, moving on from there. So, like I said, I'll leave the link at the bottom of this YouTube broadcast as well as the Facebook Live broadcast. And if you like what you see, share it. It helps me out. And again, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of TACTALK. We'll be back later this week.